My name is Ava Mitchell, and I'm 33 years old. I live in the quiet town of Willowdale, tucked away between forested hills and winding creeks. It's the kind of place where you hear birds before cars and where front porches are still a thing. My husband, Ethan Mitchell, is a freelance web developer who works from home. He's calm, thoughtful, and the kind of father who can turn a cardboard box into a pirate ship for our daughter, Zara, who is now 11 years old. Our lives weren't perfect, but they were peaceful. Zara is the heart of our home. Curious, imaginative, and endlessly bright. She's the kind of child who believes in magic, who talks to flowers in the garden, and writes notes to the moon. Ethan and I have always nurtured that sense of wonder in her. We wanted her to grow up feeling safe, seen, and loved, free to explore the world without fear. But even in the calmest waters, there are storms waiting to break loose. The greatest challenge we faced came not from the outside world, but from within our own family. Specifically, from Judith Mitchell, my mother-in-law. Judith had always been a stern, emotionally distant woman, sharp-tongued, controlling, and difficult to please. Even Ethan, who loved her in his own quiet way, often warned me she was not someone you could truly win over. Still, for the sake of family, I tried. I wanted to believe that kindness would melt her frost. I didn't fear her. I didn't think she was dangerous. But that assumption would nearly cost me everything. What happened one sunny afternoon would forever break whatever fragile peace existed between us. It was the day my daughter was accused of theft and violently attacked by her own grandmother. It was the day my world cracked open. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when Ethan and I decided to visit his mother, Judith, at her home on the outskirts of Willowdale. She had been living alone ever since Ethan's father passed away a few years back. Though she rarely showed emotion, I suspected she appreciated our visits, especially the time she got to spend with Zara. Zara, as usual, was bubbling with excitement. Earlier that morning, she had found something in the backyard that she couldn't wait to show her grandma, a butterfly with shimmering blue and orange wings, perfectly preserved. She gently placed it in a clear jar with tiny air holes poked through the lid and held it like treasure. "Mom, do you think Grandma's ever seen a butterfly this pretty?" she asked from the back seat, holding up the jar so I could see it in the rearview mirror. "I'm sure she has," I said with a smile. "But she's never seen one brought to her by you." Beside me, Ethan glanced over and gave me a small smile. It was one of those quiet moments that said everything without needing words. When we arrived, Judith greeted us at the door with her usual stiff posture and flat voice. "You're here," she said, stepping aside. "Come in." No hugs, no warmth. But when her eyes fell on Zara, I caught the slightest softening of her expression. It was brief, barely noticeable, but it was there. Zara didn't notice. She was too excited. The house was neat, filled with an old-fashioned scent of lavender and wood polish. Soft instrumental music played in the background, like always. Zara darted into the living room, gently placing her butterfly jar on the side table before beginning her usual exploration. She was fascinated by Judith's collection of books, trinkets, and odd antiques. Meanwhile, Ethan and I helped Judith with a few small tasks around the house, watering plants, tidying the kitchen, checking the pantry for expired items. Everything felt routine, even peaceful. None of us had any idea that within the next hour, our family would be changed forever. As the afternoon wore on, everything remained calm. Ethan stepped outside to take out the trash while I swept the kitchen. From the living room, I could hear Zara's quiet giggles and little gasps of excitement as she sifted through Judith's old cabinet filled with books and keepsakes. Then, I heard her voice call out with childlike wonder.
"Mom,
"Look what I found." I set the broom aside and walked toward the living room. Zara stood near the cabinet, holding up a neatly folded bill in her hand. "It was in this book," she said, pointing to a thick, dusty hardback on the shelf. $100. I think Grandma forgot it was here." Her face glowed with curiosity, completely unaware of the storm about to descend. Before I could say a word, a sharp voice sliced through the room like a whip. "What do you think you're doing?" Judith's voice was ice cold and shaking with fury. I froze. Zara's eyes widened, her tiny hands trembling as she instinctively stepped back. Judith stormed into the room. Her eyes, usually unreadable, now burned with rage. She snatched the bill out of Zara's hands with a trembling grip. "You are stealing from me," she shrieked. "Is this what your parents have taught you? To be a little thief?" Zara's lower lip quivered, her voice barely a whisper. "No, Grandma. I just found it. I wasn't stealing. I was going to give it back." But Judith wasn't listening. Her face was red, her hands clenched. I stepped forward, raising my voice. "Judith, that's enough. She's just a child. She didn't take anything." Before I could finish, Judith lunged forward and grabbed Zara by her hair. Zara let out a scream, so raw it ripped through me. Her small body jerked backward as she desperately tried to pull away. "Stop. Judith, stop." I shouted, running toward them. But Judith didn't stop. "You lying brat," she hissed, yanking harder. Zara sobbed in pain, trying to explain herself, but her words were drowned in panic. That's when Ethan burst in, his face horrified as he took in the scene. He moved fast, pulling Judith's hand away and stepping between her and our daughter. "Mom, what the hell are you doing? Let her go." Judith paused for half a second, her breathing heavy and wild. Then her eyes darted toward the corner of the room, where an old metal baseball bat leaned against the wall. It had been left there months ago after a casual family game in the backyard. In one terrifying motion, she grabbed it. I lunged forward, screaming, "No!" But I was too late. The bat came down hard, straight onto Zara's head. The sound it made will haunt me for the rest of my life. Time froze. Zara's body crumpled to the floor like a rag doll. The bat clattered beside her. For a second, all I could hear was the high-pitched ringing in my ears. Then the horror hit. "Zara!" I screamed, dropping to my knees. She lay there, motionless, her face pale, her forehead bleeding, a thin trail of blood soaking into her golden hair. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, unfocused and dazed, then shut again. Her chest moved, but her breaths were shallow and uneven. Ethan stood frozen, his face white with shock. Then suddenly, he moved, rushing to Zara, gently scooping her into his arms. Judith stood nearby, her hands still twitching from gripping the bat, her eyes blank with rage or madness. "You people let her run wild," she muttered, as if she still believed she was in the right. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My throat had closed up from panic and grief. "We need to go. Now," Ethan barked. He didn't even look at his mother. We tore out of that house, Ethan carrying Zara, me holding the door and clearing the way, my fingers trembling so badly I dropped the keys twice before finally unlocking the car. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Ethan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might snap. He ran every red light. I held Zara in the back seat, pressing a towel to her head, whispering, "Stay with me, baby, just stay with me. Please." Her breaths were faint, her lips slightly parted, whispering words I couldn't make out. I kept stroking her hair, my hands soaked with blood. By the time we reached Willowdale General Hospital, Ethan leapt from the car and tore open the back door. "Help! We need help," he shouted as we ran inside. Doctors and nurses swarmed around us. Someone took Zara from Ethan's arms and laid her on a stretcher. She was hit in the head, hard, with a bat. I sobbed to a nurse. "She's barely breathing. Get her to trauma room 3 now," one of the doctors shouted. As they rushed her down the hallway, I tried to follow, but a nurse stepped in front of me, hands raised. "Please stay here. We'll take care of her. You need to breathe." I couldn't. I felt like the world had collapsed. Ethan came up behind me and held me tight as I began to shake uncontrollably. "She's going to be okay," he whispered, though he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. All I could do was hold on and pray. We waited in the hospital's family room, silent, cold, and empty. The air smelled like antiseptic and tension. I sat hunched in a stiff chair, my arms folded tightly around myself as if I could somehow hold my own heart together. Ethan sat beside me, bouncing one knee relentlessly, staring at the tiled floor. Then, finally, a doctor entered. His expression was serious but calm. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell?" We both jumped to our feet. "How is she?" I asked, nearly breathless. "Zara is stable. She suffered a concussion and a deep laceration, but there's no skull fracture. We stopped the bleeding and stitched the wound. She's still very weak and confused, but she's awake. We'll be monitoring her for the next 24 hours for any swelling or complications." Relief flooded me like a wave, but it didn't stop the fire burning in my chest. My daughter was safe, for now. But Judith had crossed a line so far that there was no going back. "Can we see her?" Ethan asked. "Yes, but keep it short. She needs rest." When we entered Zara's room, the sight of her nearly broke me all over again. She lay still, bandages around her head, pale as paper. Tubes ran from her arms, and the monitor beside her beeped steadily. But her eyes, those wide, innocent eyes, fluttered open when she saw us. "Mom," she whispered. I rushed to her side, brushing her hair gently. "I'm here, baby. You're safe." Ethan sat on the other side of the bed, taking her tiny hand in his. "We're right here. We're not going anywhere." Tears welled in her eyes. "Grandma said I stole." I didn't take anything." "We know," I whispered, swallowing hard. "You didn't do anything wrong." I kissed her forehead and stood. I couldn't stay still anymore. "She needs to be arrested," I said quietly to Ethan, my fists clenched. "She nearly killed our daughter." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Let's make the call." We went to the hospital's security office. One of the nurses had already informed the staff there about the attack, so when we arrived, an officer was waiting for us. He was tall, clean-cut, and serious. His name tag read Officer Mason Grant. "You're the parents of Zara Mitchell?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "We want to file a formal report." He opened a notebook and clicked his pen. "Start from the beginning." And so I did. I recounted everything, from the moment Zara found the $100 bill inside the book, to Judith's rage, to the brutal attack with the bat. Ethan filled in the rest: how we rushed her to the hospital, how Zara lost consciousness in the car, how she was almost unresponsive by the time we arrived. Officer Grant listened, expression grim, taking detailed notes. "Your mother struck your child in the head with a metal bat?" "Yes," Ethan said, voice tight. "I pulled her off once, but she went back for the bat and hit her before we could stop her." The officer nodded, eyes dark. "That's aggravated assault and child endangerment. With your testimony, your daughter's statement, and the hospital's report, we have more than enough to issue an arrest warrant." He glanced back toward the hallway. "Is Zara able to speak?" "She's weak," I said, "but conscious." Officer Grant followed us back to the room. He knelt beside Zara's bed and said gently, "Hi, Zara. I'm Officer Grant. I'm here to help you. Can you tell me what happened?" Zara's lip quivered. She looked from me to Ethan, then to the officer. "Grandma was really mad," she said in a faint voice. "She said I stole her money, but I didn't. I just found it in a book." She swallowed hard. Then she pulled my hair and she hit me with a bat. My stomach turned. The officer stood, scribbled the last note, then looked at us. "That's enough. She's been through too much already. We'll handle the rest." He tucked his notepad away. "We'll bring her in tonight." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Good. She can't get away with this." Officer Grant nodded. "She won't." About an hour later, Ethan's phone rang. He put it on speaker. "This is Officer Grant," came the voice. "We've located Judith Mitchell at her residence. We're preparing to take her into custody now." My heart pounded. "Are you sure she's there?" Ethan asked. "Positive." She answered the door herself. She doesn't appear remorseful, more like confused that we're even here. That didn't surprise me. Judith had always seen herself as the authority in every room, even when she was dead wrong. "Do you want to stay on the line while we proceed?" Grant asked. "Yes," Ethan and I said at once. We heard the muffled sound of feet moving, a knock, and Officer Grant's voice, calm but firm. "Judith Mitchell, this is the police. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of aggravated assault and child abuse. Please open the door and place your hands where we can see them." A pause. Then Judith's voice, sharp and scornful. "Are you out of your minds? Arresting a grandmother? Over what? A spoiled brat crying because she got disciplined." My jaw clenched so tightly it ached. "Ma'am, step outside.
Now."
Grant's tone never wavered. There was a moment of silence. Then we heard it, the cold, unmistakable click of handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent," an officer began. Judith's voice cut in, furious. "This is ridiculous. She was stealing from me. I was trying to teach her a lesson." I felt sick. Even now, she truly believed she'd done nothing wrong. Ethan's expression hardened. "She still doesn't get it," he muttered. The call ended shortly after. But in my mind, I could clearly picture Judith, standing on her porch in handcuffs, surrounded by police, still clinging to the fantasy that she was the victim. But not this time. This time, the law saw what she really was. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. The local news had picked up the story. Grandmother arrested for assaulting 11-year-old over $100 bill. Reporters lined the back row, and a few neighbors from Willowdale sat watching quietly with folded arms and shaken heads. The trial had struck a nerve in the community. I sat in the front row with Ethan beside me, gripping my hand so tightly my fingers ached, but I didn't let go. Zara sat between us, her head injury mostly healed, but the emotional weight still visible in her eyes. She hadn't spoken much since the incident, except in therapy, and even then, only when she felt safe. Then the courtroom doors opened, and they brought Judith in. She wore an orange jumpsuit. Her silver hair, usually so perfectly curled, was limp and flat. Her hands were cuffed, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked small. Not physically, but emotionally, stripped of the power she had once lorded over all of us. Her eyes scanned the room. When she spotted us, she didn't look ashamed. She didn't look sorry. She smirked. The judge entered and called the court to order. The prosecutor stood first. A composed woman in her 40s, she wasted no time. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you'll hear in this courtroom is not just a story of misunderstanding or discipline gone too far. You'll hear about a child, an innocent girl, who was accused of stealing and violently assaulted by the very person meant to love and protect her. Judith Mitchell did not act in a moment of confusion. She acted with cruelty. And today, we're here to ensure justice is served." Judith's defense attorney tried to spin the usual lines, that she was just trying to discipline her granddaughter, that it was a tragic misunderstanding, that the bat had slipped. But then came the recordings. The 911 call Ethan had made that night played across the courtroom speakers. The panic in his voice.
My sobbing.
Zara's weak, broken whimpering in the background. Several jurors flinched. Then the medical report was read aloud. "The blunt force trauma nearly caused a fractured skull," the doctor said on the stand. "Had the blow landed slightly higher or stronger, we'd be discussing permanent brain damage or worse." Judith didn't even blink. Then came the most heartbreaking moment of all. Zara was called to the stand. I could feel her hand trembling in mine as the bailiff guided her forward. She looked so small in the witness chair, her legs not even touching the floor. The judge leaned down slightly, his voice soft and kind as he explained that she didn't have to be afraid. The prosecutor approached gently. "Zara, can you tell us what happened that day?" Zara took a breath. Her voice cracked. "I found money in one of Grandma's books. I was going to show it to her. I wasn't going to keep it, but she got really mad." Her lower lip quivered. "She pulled my hair, and she hit me with a bat." A gasp rippled through the room. One juror closed her eyes. Another clenched the armrest of his chair. I held back tears.
Just barely.
The prosecutor nodded softly. "Thank you, Zara. You were very brave." Zara came back to us, and I wrapped my arms around her tightly, whispering in her ear how proud I was. And then, it was Judith's turn to speak. She stood, facing the judge, her voice flat and without remorse. Children today don't learn discipline. If their parents are too soft, someone has to step in. I did what any strong parent would do. If you call that assault, then maybe the world has gone soft. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. And with that, she sealed her fate. The jury didn't take long. Less than an hour after deliberations began, they returned. The courtroom fell silent as the foreperson rose, holding a single sheet of paper. The judge looked up. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. My heart pounded as I gripped Ethan's hand, and I could feel Zara trembling next to me. In the case of the state of Willowdale versus Judith Mitchell, on the count of aggravated assault and child abuse, how do you find the defendant? The foreperson's voice was clear. Guilty. The word echoed through the courtroom like a thunderclap. I gasped, half relief, half grief. Ethan exhaled a deep, shuddering breath, his shoulders finally loosening. Zara looked up at me with wide eyes, as if waiting for permission to believe that it was over. The judge nodded solemnly. Judith Mitchell, this court hereby sentences you to 15 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 10 years. Your actions were deliberate, cruel, and left a lasting scar on an innocent child. This sentence reflects not only the severity of your crime, but the court's commitment to protect the vulnerable. Judith's expression finally changed. The confidence cracked. Her lips tightened, her eyes flickering with something between disbelief and panic as the bailiffs stepped forward to take her away. But even then, as they cuffed her, she looked straight at Ethan and spat out, "You did this to me. Your own mother." Ethan stood, calm and resolute.
No, he said.
You did this to yourself. She was escorted out of the courtroom, and just like that, she was gone. Gone from our lives. Gone from Zara's future. Gone from the home that she had turned into a place of fear. The courtroom emptied slowly, but we stayed seated for a moment longer. My head rested against Ethan's shoulder, and Zara leaned against me. We were exhausted, but free. The nightmare was over. Even though the trial was behind us, the emotional weight of everything Judith had done didn't vanish overnight. The bruises on Zara's body faded quickly, but the trauma ran deeper. Back at home, our house felt heavier. Every quiet room, every shadow in a hallway reminded me of that day. The what-ifs haunted me. What if we hadn't gotten her to the hospital in time? What if the bat had landed just a few inches higher? Zara barely spoke for the first week. She had frequent nightmares, waking up crying, clinging to me or Ethan. We decided to take her to a child therapist recommended by the hospital. It was slow going at first. Zara was guarded, unsure if it was safe to talk about what had happened. But little by little, with gentle encouragement, she began to open up. She talked about the pain, not just the physical blow from the bat, but the betrayal. The disbelief that someone who used to bake her cookies and brush her hair had turned on her in an instant. Ethan and I also started counseling. We needed to unpack the guilt we were carrying. Guilt for not protecting her sooner, for not seeing the signs, for ever letting Judith near her. But our therapist reminded us of one thing we had to hold on to. We stopped it. We took Zara away. We believed her. We got her help. We pursued justice. Over time, our family found new ways to feel whole again. We redecorated Zara's room. New curtains, new pillows, colorful drawings on the walls. She chose every piece herself. We started new rituals: Friday movie nights, pancake Saturdays, Sunday bike rides. We made our home feel safe and joyful again. I remember one afternoon, about 3 months after the sentencing, watching her run across the backyard chasing butterflies again. Her laughter rang out like wind chimes. Her friend from school was with her, and they were giggling as they tried to catch one with a net. Ethan stepped beside me, wrapping his arm gently around my shoulder. "She's smiling again," he whispered. I nodded, blinking back tears. "She's healing." He kissed my temple. "So are we." We stood there for a long time, just watching her, this strong, brave girl who had survived something unspeakable and still found wonder in the world. In that moment, I finally believed that we were going to be okay. Several months passed, and life began to settle into something that felt peaceful again. Zara's therapy continued, but the sessions shifted from fear and trauma to confidence and resilience. She was talking more, laughing freely, drawing again. She even entered a short story contest at school, a fantasy tale about a brave girl who tames a fire-breathing dragon with kindness. Her teacher sent home a note. Zara has a vivid imagination and a remarkably strong heart. I kept that note in my nightstand. Ethan and I, too, had started to move forward. Our own therapy helped us let go of some of the guilt we'd carried. We had been through hell as a family, but we made it out together. One evening, while Zara was asleep, I sat in our living room with a cup of tea, staring out the window at the stars. I thought about everything that had happened. How we had trusted someone who broke that trust in the most violent way. How quickly everything could fall apart in a single moment. And how painfully slow it was to rebuild. And yet, we had rebuilt. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been instant. But we had come through the other side stronger, closer, and more determined to protect what mattered. I picked up my phone and opened the Notepad app, then began to type. To any parent out there who's second-guessing their instincts, please don't. If your child says they were hurt, believe them. If someone you love becomes someone you fear, walk away. Protect your children first. Always. Even if it means breaking bonds that once felt sacred. Because no tradition, no elder, no reputation is worth more than your child's safety. I learned that the hard way. But I'd do it all again, if it meant saving Zara. A few weeks later, I shared that message, anonymously, on a parenting support forum. It went viral. Thousands of parents commented. Some shared similar stories. Others simply thanked me for saying what they couldn't. That message, in a way, helped me heal more than anything else. It reminded me that we weren't alone. And neither is anyone else going through something like this. Because families aren't built on silence. They're built on love, trust, and safety. And as long as we have that, we'll always be okay. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart or made you think, please take a moment to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more powerful and meaningful stories to life. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life inspired stories every week. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the next video.